Hey, hello, welcome once again to Ministry of the Arts. I am your host, Cliff Gober. I came with a friend of mine, a little frog in my throat, so forgive me if me and the frog start talking at the same time. We've got a great show lined up for you today, but right now we want to start off with a word of prayer. Father, we thank you so much for this time. We thank you for the opportunity to go over the airwaves. We pray, God, that everything that needs to be said in this broadcast will be said to minister, bless, encourage, inspire all those who watch it. Continue to do your thing in us and through us, and we'll continue to give your name the glory and the honor and praise. It's in Jesus' name we declare these things to be so. Amen. All righty then. Good to have you back. I hope you guys are having a great day today. My guest today is another fantastic guest. I just met him in person 20 minutes ago. Spoke with him on the phone a few days ago. He is the host of Jaspel, which is a TV show that you can see on the Word Network. He is also a radio host at a radio station south of here. You'll find out he's just got his hands in all kinds of different things. Let me introduce to you the one and only Mr. Eric J. Chambers. What's going on, man?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you again for doing this. I know you're flipping and flapping all over the country and doing your thing, so really appreciate you being here. Now tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Eric J. Chambers?
Well, originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. That's where I was born, and I joined the Navy back in 1982. That was my ticket to Southern California. You know, growing up in Louisiana, I dreamed dreams of one day doing what I do. In fact, I've got a picture that's in my book and also on my website that was taken on November 28th, 1974. I was 11 years old back then doing what I do now, pretending to be a reporter. You know, so it's been in the blood for a long time. I feel that I have been handpicked by God, as I mentioned on my radio program, how the Lord reached down from heaven in this vast garden called Earth, and he picked me and he said, you shall be the host of the Jaspel on radio and television. And that's, you know, how I ended up getting here.
So why the Navy? How did that happen? Why not just pack up the car and just go straight to California?
Well, first of all, when you don't have the money, you know, when you're poor and you don't have the money, you have to be creative with it. So I had to give up 4 years of my life, but it was wonderful. You know, when I was in high school, you know, back in the day, perhaps they still may have to do it, but when I was in high school, you know, we had to register for the draft back then. And I was like, I ain't going to register for nobody's draft, you know. And then I was going to Southern University in Baton Rouge. I was there as a major in journalism at the time. And some of my friends were in the Navy ROTC. And then after being at Southern in Baton Rouge, I could only afford it for one semester. My brother was at Jackson State. I was at Southern in Baton Rouge. My brother was ahead of me, so he ended up getting his master's degree, and I was got out of, you know, I ended up getting out of college and joining the Navy so I could help my mother and help my brother out. But nevertheless, some friends were in the military ROTC there, and then when I went to Southern University in New Orleans, I joined the Army ROTC. And I was like, this is pretty good. And then I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired in Louisiana. You know, I grew up there. I had dreams and aspirations of one day coming out here to do what I do. And I knew that I had to do something drastic. And even though I never imagined that I would be saying I do to Uncle Sam, and then all of a sudden it was like in September of 1981, I joined what they call the Delay Entry Program. And on January 26, 1982, I left Louisiana, left home, and been gone ever since. I was 19 years old then. Wow. And it was really probably the single most important career move I've ever made. Even though there were times when, man, I hated life in the Navy.
I was going to ask, what was your life like in the Navy?
There were times I hated life in the Navy, not so much because of the work. I was a communications specialist. Back in the day, you know, when we had teletypes long before email and all that. And I was also an international Morse code specialist.
Oh, wow.
And so what happened was I was in RMA school in San Diego for 3 months, and I didn't really quite know if I liked it enough yet, so I volunteered for International Morse Code School, you know, and see, most people in the Navy, man, you cringed if because you had to get drafted for that. Nobody was volunteering. but I volunteered for it. I was up for the challenge. And so I did that. I was 19 years old, and they gave me an extra 3 months to see if I really liked San Diego, because I was kind of like hyping myself out, believing that I liked it, but I hadn't seen enough.
Right.
And after those 6 months there, I decided I wanted to be stationed here in Southern Cal. I went in at 19, and by the time I was 21, I had traveled 3/4 around the world twice.
Wow.
Africa, Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand. And two places I wanted to go first and foremost when I joined the Navy. One was to the Motherland and one was to the Holy Land. I never got to the Holy Land, but I did get to the Motherland, to Somalia. That was like the day before Thanksgiving of 1982. And ironically, the way the Lord worked it out is the ship wasn't even scheduled to go to Africa, but it was an unscheduled trip, and behold, that's where I joined the ship. You know, I flew to the Philippines, to like Tokyo, to the Philippines. You know, you have to like fly all over the world to try to catch up to where your ship is, because it may be way out at sea. And you know, the longest I've been out at sea was like about 30 days, you know, nonstop without seeing land. But to be quite honest, man, the Navy was, it was just a fun, to me, as I look back in retrospect. Now, when you're going through it, it sucks big time at times. But, you know, I would give nothing for, you know, the journey of meeting a lot of the people all over the world, you know, going to Fremantle and Perth, Western Australia, going to Hong Kong and Singapore and all those kinds of places. And I used to love being out at sea, because then I used to write in my journal. And it was then where I used to dream dreams, because I was a radioman in the Navy, but just like what you're doing here. In my off time, I would go and work in the what they call CCTV, you know, closed circuit television. And so I was a ship sports anchorman. And so it worked out. I worked in the radio department, which was the communications department. That's where all of the information would come, where we would disseminate it to the rest of the people on the ship. So I had the best of both worlds.
So you were working already in this form of communication and radio and television before you even got off the ship?
Actually, I even began when I was 13. Yeah, even before I joined the Navy. I became a sports writer for my hometown newspaper, the Slidell Daily Century News, just outside of New Orleans. I remember in June of 1976, there was an ad in the newspaper asking for a sports correspondent to cover high school sports. And I remember asking my mother, "Mama, can I apply for this job?" And she was like, "Yeah, you can apply for it." I was 13.
Wow.
I was 13, and so what happened is I applied for the job, and my sister, she was like, "Well, we don't have a car. How are you going to take your articles to the newspaper place, you know, to the office?" I was like, "I'll cross that bridge when I get there." And so what happened, a guy by the name of Kevin Cherry, who was my mentor, and Kevin still is a part of that network with the newspaper down in Louisiana, but I didn't get the job to cover the high school sports. But I think Kevin thought, if you were bold enough to ask for a job at 13 years old, I'm bold enough to give you one. And so he hired me, and I started writing Bantam League baseball. I was 13, writing about baseball players 11 years old. And then it went from there to, I wrote, when I was at Southern in Baton Rouge, I wrote on like a feature article on one of our guys who was from Slidell, who was going to Southern, Mike Williams, and then I wrote on professional wrestling. And then in my career for 5 years, you know, I covered the San Diego Chargers from 1993 to 1997. So I've virtually done it all: news, sports, you know, entertainment.
So you get off you get off the boat, as it were. You're discharged from the Navy. You're in San Diego, and a lot of times we hear these stories about celebrities or whatever. They just hit from, we're here, and then I waited around, and then this guy called, and they don't talk about the in between time. So you get off the boat in San Diego, and what's your first? You had the desire to do.
But actually, what happened is I started working for the ABC affiliate in San Diego, KGTV. I remember going there in my uniform one day, you know, applying for a job. This was like maybe in December of 1985 or so. And the news director, Paul Sands, he asked, "So when are you getting out?" And I said, "I get out in March." So I went back again in like January, and they ended up hiring me. And so I was still in the Navy when I started working for the ABC affiliate.
And they hired you to do?
I worked as a messenger in the mailroom. And so I would, you know, distribute, you know, mail throughout the station. I would go and make deposits. One day I made a deposit of like $250,000 for the for the TV station.
Yeah.
And so that's what the messenger did. You know, you would have these checks and stuff. You have to go to the bank and deposit them. You would have to go pick up mail. You have to distribute it. You have to go to other TV stations. And just like you call it here, bicycling shows,
Right.
where we had to bicycle spots, ads.
Right.
And so I did that, and for about 6 months, and then they gave me an opportunity to get, when I got hired into the news department as what they call a grip, an assistant, a cameraman assistant. And from then on, once I was eligible to touch the gear, man, there were days when I would stay there all day and all night.
Just different jobs and doing stuff or trying.
No, you know, by trade, I'm an editor. I've got 9 Emmys and Golden Mike Awards from CBS, and you know, as an editor. And so what happened is, I just started. I would go in on weekends and just edit until my heart was content. You know, and sometimes, like if me and my wife were having a dispute, instead of me going to a club or chasing other girls, I tell her, look, I'm going to the station.
Right.
And I remember one time I went like 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and I didn't leave till like 6 o'clock Sunday morning.
Wow.
And I would just be editing and just experimenting, mainly like doing weddings and family reunion stuff, experimenting. And all of that stuff, little did I know that it was a prelude to where I am today.
And it's interesting how God will put us in different situations, and you know, and we look back and you go, well, if it had not been for that, I wouldn't have gotten to this, and if it had not been for this, I wouldn't have gotten to this, and it all prepares us for the next big thing. And we know it doesn't end, because there's more that God has for you beyond this. But talk about now the transition from doing those things to moving into your own show.
And just one other quick question, one other quick statement here. My real professional career, you know, when I was working as a, say for instance, as a messenger, and when I first was able to, when I was doing all this editing and everything, I was working as the head of the TV ministry at my church in San Diego,
Okay.
St. Stephen's.
Okay.
So I was a one-man band there, and so I had my camera, I would shoot the ministry, I would edit it, produce it, and all that stuff. And so now, with me doing my thing on the Word Network, we're available in over 50 million households via direct TV and cable, plus we're in 140 countries around the globe. And people are in utter amazement when I was shooting my 75th episode that Dr. Tonya Lewis was on, and some of the others, people were just amazed when I was on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and there I am doing my thing, and there's nobody behind the camera. And this is the day that Johnny Grant, he had just died the night before.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of media people there covering the death of Johnny Grant, the honorary mayor of Hollywood.
Okay.
And so what happened was even some of the camera guys were passing by shooting, you know, me doing my thing.
Right.
And like one of my buddies told me, you know, use what you have till you get what you want.
Yeah.
And sure, I would love to have, you know, a crew like you guys have and all that stuff. But until then, you know, I have my own gear.
And because you have that experience doing all of that
it all
stuff
began
in San
right there in
Diego.
that center aisle at St. Stephen's Church of God in Christ in San Diego.
Yeah, that's excellent.
You know, because I didn't have the experience,
Right.
but I figured it out. And I used to love to watch, even with me as a host, my favorite all-time host on television was Peter Jennings. And I got a chance to meet Peter a couple of times when he came to the TV station in San Diego.
Okay.
And but that was just, I just thought Peter was just so awesome.
Yeah, he was a great guy. I miss him terribly. So now, Jaspel, where did the seed of that come from? Because I mean, now it's on, you know, the cable, the direct TV, and it's on all these places and all these countries. Didn't start that way though, did it?
No, actually, it began in the idea was born in 1991. I was at a backyard barbecue for a friend of mine in San Diego from St. Stephen's, from the church. Susie Holloway is her name. And so what happened was there were some members from the band playing at her birthday, but they were playing music, but there was no vocals. They were playing like your regular congregational songs, like "Give Me a Clean Heart" and you know, stuff like that. And I was like, wow. I said, what an interesting concept. That's where the idea was born.
And they were playing jazz versions of those songs?
Basically, they were playing the songs without vocals. And the Lord, that's when I first thought about, wow, I would love to one day do something like that. That was in 91, November of 1991. And then finally, my show was born in 1994.
Now, what did you do specifically to start the show, for lack of a better phrase?
Well, I was working at the ABC affiliate in San Diego at the time. And so what happened is I left there, took a $20,000 pay cut to go from TV to radio.
Okay.
And so when I did that, part of the deal was they promised me that I would be able to do my Jaspel radio program.
Okay.
And so most people was like, man, you're crazy. You know? But I just felt led that, somebody had to sacrifice.
Right, right.
And so I even turned down a $60,000 a year job with CNN, just so that I can continue doing my radio show in San Diego, because it was like, okay, if I leave, what about those people who depend on this on every Sunday morning?
Right.
Who's going to fend for them? Because if I'd have left, the station would have not filled it. They would have just...
Right. So Jasper started as a radio show.
Started as a radio show, debuted it in 1994, July 10th, 1994. And after doing that for a while, I worked at CBS here in Hollywood from 1995 to 2001.
Okay.
Even with the Emmys and Golden Mikes, got laid off. I was a per diem employee there.
Okay.
And so what happened was, after I couldn't find another job, and still can't, believe it or not, as decorated as my career is, it's still amazing to me and to others that I can do, in fact I do, everything that you guys have here now, I do it as a one-man band, writer, producer, director, editor, go for it, do it all.
Right.
But I do it because of the fact that, I have to.
Right.
Graphic artists, all of that stuff.
And a lot of times people don't understand when you're starting something that you do have to have 5 or 6 different talents or gifts, or be able to figure out how to do all of that stuff. I mean, I've heard different pastors talk about they had to, open the church and clean the church and play the organ and do the prayer and all of that before there was a big staff.
It's a part of the journey. I wouldn't take nothing for the journey.
Yeah.
Eventually, I hope to be able to get emancipated
from the journey,
where I could have help, where I could have the money coming in and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
But as I just did my 75th episode, and as I look back, and think of some of the guests who've been on the show.
Speak about that a little bit.
Okay, you were asking me about how the television came about.
Right.
In October of 2002, I put together, I called the Word Network to ask if I could present this show as a pilot and see what happens. And he said yes, and so I dragged my feet on it. And finally, in March of 2003, I called him again. He said, okay, I'm still waiting. And I was like, Lord, thank you, because I could have slept on an opportunity there.
Right.
And I sent him the first demo, and he liked it a lot. And then I sent him the second one. The first one was me in a park in Burbank, and I just set up the camera and I did my little one-man band thing. The second time, I was on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and he loved, the president of the network, Louis Gibbs, he loved all of the excitement in the background with the characters, Batman and Superman and all these people. And he was like, I love it. And my show first started off with the first episode on June 14th, 2003.
Okay.
I had 5 music videos. And then I had a couple little trivia questions and stuff in there. And then from the second episode up until now, it's been just incredible with the guests. Beyonce, Arsenio Hall, the Gap Band, Rick James, Tina Marie, Tony Braxton, Magic Johnson, Vince Carter. The list goes on and on and on. And I'm still amazed sometime that here I am as a one-man band with no budget, but yet and then a lot of these people tell me they watch my show.
Right.
I'm honored by that. When I first met Arsenio, I go up to him. We were at an event at Soul Train, and I said, "Hi, Arsenio, Eric J. Chambers. I'd like to with the Word Network. I'd like to interview you." He said, "Man, I know who you are.
Wow.
Not only do I know who you are, but I've been to your website and I want to buy one of those T-shirts."
Wow.
And I was like in awe that, man, Arsenio Hall knows who little old me is from Pearl River, Louisiana.
Right.
And so that was encouraging to me. And I've interviewed other athletes who told me they watch my show.
That's great. So we'll break it down now. Favorite, or I know maybe there's not one, but favorite interviews that you've had. Interviews that you've had that just at the end of it, you just went, that was great. That was really cool.
Favorite. There's been so many from like interviewing Rick James was great. Having him, we knew Rick James is super freak.
Right.
But behind the scenes, there was a guy who truly loved the Lord as well. Getting a chance to meet and interview like Sister Rosa Parks and Mrs. Mamie Till Mobley, the mother of the late Emmett Till. Those are 2 of the most favorite people ever that I've ever met and had a chance to interview and spend time with. And then, of course, probably one of the most fun interviews probably was Arsenio.
Is that right?
Because he had me cracking up the whole time. I mean, my side was hurting.
Yeah.
Because he was just so funny.
Yeah. That's
you know,
great.
Arsenio, and as I told him, I said, my show is basically a mobile version of Arsenio meets Oprah, you know. And so he was encouraging with that, and it was just hilarious. And then also Cheryl Underwood. She's a comedian. You see her on BET a lot.
Right.
I had an interview with her in 2005. Man, she had me in stitches.
Is that right?
It was at the BET Awards, and it was just hilarious.
That's great. Now, we were talking earlier about a lot of the artists you end up interviewing for reasons we won't get into end up being secular artists, but yet you still find that a lot of them are still godly people. Talk a little bit about that, because you mentioned Rick James.
Yeah, what I've found, Cliff, is that a lot of times people, you know, people try to judge the book by its cover. There's a quote in my book here called The Love I Have for You. There's a quote that I love by a man by the name of Egbert Martin. He said, "Judge not thy brother. There are secrets in his heart that you might weep to know." See, people see the outer person, but they don't know the demons that somebody may be dealing with on the inside, and they also don't know the goodness that somebody may have on the inside. You know, to me, the most difficult interviews, and I mentioned this on my program, the most difficult interviews to get most of the time are the mega preachers and the top gospel recording artists. Some of the nicest people you want to meet, the hardcore rappers, you know, the actors, you know, the R&B secular quote-unquote singers, you know, a lot of them, because it's rare that people ask them about their walk of faith, and they're honored by that.
So do you think you sometimes get an aspect of their personality that usually doesn't come out? Do you find yourself able to pull things out of them?
Sure I do, because again, when we're on the red carpet, I care less about who you're wearing or who you're sleeping with and all that kind of stuff. I leave that for the other stations that want to do that kind of madness. I feel that time is too valuable for me to be asking you that kind of craziness. How can this program enrich somebody else's life? And say, for instance, you're a fan of like Omarion or Sierra. You're 18, 19 years old, you're a big fan, and your daddy and your mom is telling you to go to church, and you don't want to go, and all you want to do is listen to their music in your room. And then boom, you pop up and you see them on my show talking about how much they love the Lord, how they go to church. That has a profound impact on people's lives.
Right.
You know, and one of the nicest people I've ever met is my girl Beyonce. Sweet as pie. Beyonce and Destiny's Child, all three of those girls. You know, and so a lot of times people get it twisted when they don't know them. And I've had a chance to meet them, and I've seen them before they blew up and even afterwards. And then again, like I said, it's still amazing that again, the most difficult interviews a lot of times, or the ones who are not as jovial when you're interviewing them. Or a lot of the gospel artists, mainly when you're at a gospel event. Now, if you're on the red carpet at the BET Awards or at a quote-unquote secular event, you know, everybody's happy-go-lucky then, because they're not the big fish in the small pond. But purposely, I don't go to the Stellar Awards anymore. I used to be one of their people that put the names on the ballot. I used to be part of the committee that do that. I used to vote for it. I don't even worry about it anymore.
So when you go to these events, what you go up to them and you say, "Hi, I'm Eric J. Chambers from Jasper. Can I interview you?" Or how does that?
Well, usually what happens is, say for instance, if you're on the red carpet, they have, you know, you're assigned. So they would have like on the floor, they would have like a tape or a paper or something that says, "This is your spot." The Jasper with Eric J. or the Word Network. Over here, they would say Cliff Gober, you know, and it's like an assembly line. And as you see them coming down the line, you know, some of the people you know, some of them you don't know. And so what I try to do with my show, when I'm doing a red carpet event, I try to at least put one or possibly two people that you don't know, try to give them a little love that way. Even if it sometimes means sacrificing some of the time with someone else, or maybe not even putting someone else on. I've got plenty of interviews with name artists that I've never aired. You know, but every now and then I try to, because the thing about it is, some of these artists, say for instance, Yolanda Adams. Now, I know Yolanda personally, I've been knowing her for years, but she's not going to be quite as excited about being on my program as Cliff would be, because he's a new artist. And so we want people who are going to be really excited about being there, and give them an opportunity to, you know, to be able to be a part of this whole vast madness called Hollywood as well.
We got a few minutes left. You one of those guys, man, that they used to talk about in Living Color. You got 9 jobs.
Jamaica.
Right. I'm the chief of police and the fire chief from all of these. So one of the things that you're also doing, you've written a book. It's called The Love I Have for You. We've got about 3 minutes. Talk a little bit about the book, what it's about, how you came about writing it, and that type of thing.
Well, the book is called The Love I Have for You, Breaking the Baby Daddy Cycle with Fatherly Love. It's a book that I wrote about my daughter, Erica Noel, who will be 6 in May. And so what happened was I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I wrote another book before this one. It's called Life is Per Diem. We're all day to day. I haven't even published it yet, but I was calling a friend of mine named Dakia, and I asked her, because she's an author, and I was asking her about who printed her book. And then I told her about, I was just raving about how awesome it is being my daughter's dad. And she was like, Eric, that's what you should write about.
That's
it's your daughter. And I was like, well, maybe you're onto something. And so I did. I ended up, taking some of the stuff that I'd written in the journal about my daughter, compiled it into a book, and I was blessed to get Rick Warren, the author of The Purpose-Driven Life, to endorse it, and my pastor in San Diego, Bishop McKinney, did the foreword for me.
Excellent.
And people all over the nation have been blessed by it. And basically the book is not only about the relationship with me and my daughter, but it also encourages our men, especially black men, to quit being baby daddies, become husbands first. There's a divine order that should that should take place when it comes to creating a family. And even though I was born of an affair, and I wrote about this in the book, I was born of an affair, and at 45 years old, my father still hasn't told his wife. But nevertheless, I said just because I was born of one doesn't mean I have to perpetuate that madness.
That's exactly right.
And so that's why when I hear people say, well, I didn't have a daddy, I was like, welcome to the I didn't have a daddy club.
Yeah, how about that?
But just because you didn't have one, and like I talked about in the book, when I opened it up, I said, I don't know what it's like to have been held in my father's arms as a baby. But I know what it's like to hold my own daughter. And I said, calling someone daddy is foreign to my lips, but being called dada is one of the sweetest sounds I've ever heard.
That's great, man. We will wrap up. We might have to bring you back and cover some more stuff. But I wanted to thank you with a little token for being on the show.
Well, I appreciate it.
That is for you, sir. Eric's got a lot of information, a lot of stuff. If you contact us after the show, we're going to have some information. You can email us or write us or call us, and we'll talk to you about how to get in touch with Eric and how to get his book and how to get his this and how to do all that stuff. But you don't have to contact us to find him on DirecTV, on the Word Network, every Saturday?
At 1:30 p.m.
Every Saturday, and then every Sunday morning on the radio, right? All right. This is Eric J. Chambers. I'm Cliff Gober. This was Ministry of the Arts. We had a great time. I want to thank Eric again for being on the show. I want to thank my producer, Lady D. Girl, you know you working it. I also want to thank Dr. Tonya Lewis, my mama, my sister, my friend. Girl, I appreciate you so much. I want to thank Bishop Blake at West Angeles Church of God in Christ. I just want to thank everybody. I'll see you next time. God bless you.